Good morning, everybody on the East Coast, and happy Saturday to everybody who's watching elsewhere. This stream is in English. Дорогие друзья, эта встреча у нас на английском языке. Our guest is Nicholas Chamberas. He's a New York political strategist, public affairs strategist, and a journalist. После этой программы будет мой обзор событий, перевод речи RFK-младшего о том, что он присоединяется к кампании Дональда Трампа, той речи, которую он произнес вчера в Аризоне. А сейчас мы поговорим о том, что видит Ник Чамберас, наш товарищ и замечательный журналист и комментатор в своем праве. Nick, the floor is yours. I wanted to ask you only for beginning the status of American politics today with all the events that we have, and we have a true, forgive my pun, Chinese buffet of events to discuss. It should be golden time for American journalism, but it clearly is not, in my opinion.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and what people are up against, what people who aren't like us and don't follow this closely. And I watched a so-called focus group from CNN of undecided voters. These voters were not undecided. I mean, even the moderator at one point, he slipped up and he said, "Oh, you were the one who was 60-40 for Harris before, right?" That's not an undecided voter, people. So the panel was obviously rigged to boost Harris. Conveniently, they had 3 members of the United Auto Workers Union, which is interesting.
Who was first to protest, quote unquote, was the pro-Hamas crowd in Bay Ridge, by the way. They were there. Was ready-made placards. They were there. UAW, I remember very well. They were with the Hamas.
What?
Their representatives, United Auto Workers.
That's again this would obviously be something that their leadership would do, because the rank and file of the UAW are not Hamas sympathizers. They're some of the hardest working men and women in the country, some of the most patriotic men and women in the country. Their leadership is absolutely bonkers. Just for the fact that they endorsed Harris and previously they endorsed Biden shows that their leadership is not to be taken seriously. If Harris gets 4 years, in 5 years, we will not have an auto industry in this country. As a matter of fact, this is not a tangent I want to go on, but we were all very happy when President Trump negotiated the USMC, which replaced the disastrous, insane NAFTA passed by Bill Clinton and the Democrats. And they already found a workaround, the Chinese, on this trade deal by building factories in Mexico, and basically getting all of sending parts, pre-made parts to Mexico. So basically they're experiencing all the benefits of this treaty that was from Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And at this rate, if this isn't reined in, there will no longer be any factories in the United States making cars. So right off the bat, I don't think anyone has any confidence or expectation that a Harris administration would do anything to address this. Their subsidies for electric cars basically will wipe out tens of thousands of jobs, most of them in automobile plants. So Yuri, I'm glad you told me about this. I didn't even know.
Yeah, I'll send you the pictures to confirm, and I will go into it myself. I was stunned because support Democrats today for auto workers, and you lose your job tomorrow.
Thank you. Yes, forgive me if I'm too emotional, but it makes no sense. Come on, people. And yeah, the panel had 3 United Auto Workers Union participants. And of course, they all decided conveniently that they're voting for Harris after they watched the speech. Two undecideds gave her an A, which I thought was interesting since they were undecided before, but all of a sudden they were so impressed by the speech. It was just, you have to watch it. It's only 10 minutes. Maybe I can send you the clip. But again, this could be considered an in-kind contribution to the Harris campaign. No serious political observer believes these people were undecided beforehand. It's just not right.
I think it's also a psyop going on, because undecideds in this country are people who voting Republican, most of them, because they are, a lot of those people of this fragment of the voting population.
Yes,
they are afraid to speak up. They see what's going on.
I think so. You can't tell me you were undecided and you gave that speech an A. I guess if you were undecided and just had not looked into the matter at all, that's why you were undecided. Maybe you've never voted before in your life, and you followed politics as closely as you follow Zoroastrianism or something. Maybe. I don't think you saw that speech. If you saw that speech and you were Democrat leaning to Harris, yes. And like I said, the CNN moderator even admitted that. He said, oh yeah, your score was 60-40. Mm-hmm. So they're already trying to game the process. Where should we, please, I want to kick it back to you. Where do you want to start with all?
You need the guidance. I'll give you the guidance.
Because I could
listen. Let's start from this. Tell me. First of all, let's start like the Jews read from the right to left, from right to left, right? So let's start with the latest news. Let's start with the RFK Jr. situation, which I will report on after this program, after our broadcast here in Russian. So what do you think? What's under the hood, as I like to say?
Outstanding development. And please forgive me if I sound immodest, but I am not one of those clickbait wannabe influencer strategists. Yes, I'm not perfect. I don't always get things right. Who does? I have to just say, I came on your program in December 2023, and I said, folks, a vote for RFK is a vote for the Democrats. Please don't waste your vote. Please understand what's at stake. And I've been continuing since then, steadily, consistently. RFK was drawing votes away from Donald Trump. This wasn't just my supposition. This was backed up by hard data from Donald Trump's pollsters. RFK was pulling votes from Trump, particularly in the swing states like Pennsylvania. He was hurting Donald Trump. And this is an absolutely fantastic development. I am pleasantly surprised. I know it's not easy. It can't possibly be easy for someone like RFK to endorse a Republican with that history. It was a heroic act. And I was disgusted by some of the comments and statements put out by his relatives. I don't know if you saw them, but they blasted him, and they said that his ancestors, would never vote for Donald Trump or a Republican. Let's keep it real. RFK, John F. Kennedy would be kicked out, would be run out of town on a rail in today's Democratic Party. Can you imagine John F. Kennedy ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country in today's Democratic Party? Who are they kidding? I think it was a heroic act. I'm ecstatic about it because I have put myself on the line, and I have some concerns. We can talk about them later. I have some concerns, like anyone would have concerns about any presidential campaign, no matter how well things were going. But I've predicted on your show and other shows as well that we're winning, that President Trump is going to win this in a landslide. I'm not deviating from that prediction, even after a tumultuous month since they announced Harris. But I think this puts us on that road. And RFK's speech yesterday was poignant. It was touching. It hit so close to home. I think to so many unaffiliated Americans. We're not all to the right, to the left, but he not only spoke about the dictatorial, totalitarian tactics used by the Democrats.
Full court press on him
Yeah,
nationwide.
yeah, and I was so glad. Again, I think courage is contagious, and I think people are seeing, like, look, these people are insane. And I'm sorry. Well, again, there's things I want to talk about later, but this Democratic Party, if you take out the amazing production of the DNC convention, these people are crackpots. Forgive me for using harsh language. These people are out of their minds. So whatever issues you may have with the Republican candidate, whatever issues you may have with RFK, with positions in the Republican Party, if you look at this objectively, you realize that the other side is insane. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But you saw RFK. He talked about, why should we poison our kids? Why should we have chemicals in foods? Our country allows substances into foods that are banned almost everywhere else in the world. You have these theories about Americans consuming a lot of calories. It's not true. Actually, Americans, Europeans, from what I understand, consume more calories than Americans. Why do we have such problems with obesity? And now, look, I'm not a nutritionist. Far be it from me to cast myself off as a health expert, but you look at the ingredients that is allowed in our food, and it's high time that we take a look at this. Now, Kamala Harris and the Democrats, the party of big pharma, certainly don't want us to do this. That's why they ignored RFK. That's why they didn't want to make any deals with RFK, because they're very uncomfortable with someone like that having any oversight, having any feedback, insight into what they're doing. So I was touched by RFK's speech as someone who's been pulling for Donald Trump from the beginning, who predicted the big win in the primaries. I am very happy and very satisfied that RFK has endorsed Donald Trump. And I said the other side is just so extreme, despite the great acting of the last few days in Chicago. We need to band together. I don't care what's going on in the rest of the world. I don't care how strong the oligarchs are in deciding outcomes, but it's time for the adults in the room to get together and say, stop.
No, absolutely. I will speak of my impression of this RFK speech. It's much more important, it turned out, than basically everything that happened in Chicago was much pomp of circumstance, and with Steven Spielberg production, which deserves like 1.5 words in and of itself. But it was interesting that I just listened to it. I didn't have an opportunity to hear it live, watch it live yesterday, but it was, of course, it was a standing feat of political agility, and it was going on for a while, as it was disclosed by Donald Trump yesterday and RFK, because they didn't need to. If you love America, this is the most patriotic thing that any politician this caliber did in recent memory. Because what happened, it was important to me, and this is what I want to underscore, that RFK confirmed that he did not change his views, and he did not change his stance, addressing obviously to his followers, to those people who brought him that far in the race. And he said he didn't want them to leave. He wanted them to stay and vote for Trump. And also there is a figure of Nicole Shanahan, which is a candidate for a vice president in RFK Jr.'s team. And she speaks also for an interesting group of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, I would imagine. And she's also involved in this ecological stuff. She's and we learned sort of she leaked it first, right? She spoke about it first.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So and there was no leaks from Trump campaign, by the way, about it. It was the first.
That is a welcome development.
Yeah. So I think it reflects certain state of mind in Silicon Valley, and also a lot of people need an out, in this Biden Harris Biden circus, and they say, "Oh, listen, this is over the top. We cannot go with Biden. We cannot go with Harris." So now what's your opinion on this group of people who may join, or they may kind of skedaddle from the camp of new RFK Jr.?
Well, I'm pleased from a political strategic standpoint. I'm pleased that RFK will not, in most states anyway, in most swing states, he will not be on the ballot, and his voters will be influenced by his endorsement and support of Donald Trump. Because if you were unhappy with the censorship of this regime, if you were unhappy with the totalitarian tactics, the brutal mandates, this slavish obedience to big pharma, when you had RFK as an option, that complicated things for the Trump campaign. Now it simplifies things. Those votes are going to Donald Trump. So in places like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, we're going to open up leads. I'm fairly convinced of that, and that's going to be huge. I find it interesting that, just like with JD Vance, they already started calling RFK weird. James Carville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, James
Really?
Carville. Yeah, everybody's weird to them. If you don't want 250-pound 6'3" men playing in junior high school women's basketball, you're weird.
No, listen. I had a good joke. What was assistant coach Tim Walz doing when what was his task in the team where he coached? As we know, it's a big thing with Democrats now. The coach Walz, and the answer is he was teaching how to use tampons.
Listen, Coach Walz, based on his speech at the DNC, would probably happily hand out tampons to anybody who would take one, and that would be one of the least. His speech was so shameless, and as you probably know, most people know, I don't like extreme language. I like civility in politics. I like to listen to other viewpoints. If you knew a little bit about Governor Walz's background going into his speech, you would characterize it as creepy. It was such a con on the American people. And I want to use examples. I don't just want to, throw words out there. But one theme that I'm hoping the Trump campaign and the Vance campaign capitalize on a lot more is his allusions to book banning. And there were some very creepy parts to his speech, because the Democrats are going to try to be full of false choices and demonization of Republicans. Before I talk exactly about his speech, and you'll understand why I'm mentioning this now. First of all, if you're a Republican, an independent, and you're fixated on opposing free school lunches or free school breakfasts, everyone has a right to their opinion. We're not Democrats. But if that's really the hill you want to die on, I can't stop you, but get a grip. The truth of the matter is, most Republicans, most people, based on what we're spending and wasting in the government, are not opposed to free school breakfasts and free school lunches. I think personally that's a great thing. I think most elected officials and candidates would agree. The Republican Party is not going to be blocking breakfast and lunch at public schools ever, or any party for that matter. But see, this is the great setup that Walz put in his speech. Did you hear the speech? Do you know what I'm alluding to?
Yeah, I did, but it's kind of some details may have
Yeah, no, you couldn't
eluded me.
It was hard to keep up, but I want to read I want to read this exactly because I don't want anybody to say that I'm putting words in anyone's mouth. So Governor Walz in his acceptance speech said, while other states were banning books from their school, we were banning hunger from ours.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get one thing straight. I am a product of the public schools. Growing up, private school was not an option. Parochial school was not an option. Whether your descendants came here on the Mayflower or your parents came here a week ago, a day ago, and you're here lawfully, you have the right, in my view, you have the right to a high quality public school education without indoctrination and without trash. What is he talking about? In other states, they were busy banning books. We were banning hunger. You know what? Just because Minnesota may provide free breakfast and lunch to their school students in elementary school does not mean we have to force this pornographic trash on 6-year-olds. And that's exactly what Governor Walz did. I may have spoken about these two books before. I've written about it extensively. I've been interviewed about these books popping up in elementary school libraries. I'm against book banning. There's no reason to ban books, most books anyway. If you're an adult and you want to buy a book, as disturbing as this book may be, if you want to pay for it with your own money, go buy these books. What happened? So there are books such as Lawn Boy, whose author, by the way, has made it clear these books are not for children. They're not for adolescents. These books are for adults only. So the author of this book has said it is not appropriate for children. Genderqueer, same thing. Not appropriate for children. So Lawn Boy, graphically
So it's for pedophiles, right? From what I know about the content of the book.
My humble opinion.
For the pedophiles.
Look, people will disagree with me about this, and I'd be happy to have an honest, intelligent conversation with anyone about this. We're not Democrats. Again, we're not trying to ban speech. You want to debate me on this? Go for it. But I agree with you, Yuri. This is, to me, porn for pedophiles. Again, you want to disagree with me? Go ahead. But let's talk about what's in Lawn Boy. Lawn Boy depicts graphic sex between two 10-year-old boys. What the heck is it doing in an elementary school library? Genderqueer not only talks about graphic sex between children, it has vivid illustrations in this book. These books do not belong in elementary schools.
This is what pedophiles like. They like illustrations.
Well, people
I like to push your buttons all the way down.
You're doing a good job. These books don't belong in elementary schools. And the problem, the advantage Democrats have is people are in disbelief. They don't believe this. I speak to people who've known me for years and who come to me for advice, who they want a fact checker. I'm flattered they come to me and I tell them about this and they're like, no. You misunderstood. This is impossible. This is against the law. There are laws against this. This is not allowed. And I'm trying to explain to them, and I don't want to go into too detail because, as you can see, I get worked up. But in a lot of states like Michigan and Texas and Minnesota, community boards, school boards got together and said, hey, we're not banning, we don't want to ban this book, but we really don't feel comfortable with it being in elementary school libraries accessible to little kids. Little kids should be thinking about Santa Claus and things like that. They should not, it's not appropriate. And I'm sorry, but if a school board comes to that consensus, they have a right to come to that consensus. They have the right to make a decision. So they can't ban a book, but they certainly don't need to spend taxpayers' money on this trash. In Minnesota, just like in Texas and Michigan, parents got together in several school districts and said, yeah, if you're carrying Lawn Boy, this book Lawn Boy, or Genderqueer, whose own authors have said it's not appropriate for children, please remove it. Do not allow children access to this material. It's not banning it, they're removing it. Walz got involved directly. Governor Walz, our vice presidential candidate, the Democrats' vice presidential candidate, a man who clearly could become our next president, our next vice president, one heartbeat away from the presidency. He got directly involved. He crafted a bill banning the ability of school boards to remove these books from elementary schools. Elementary schools, not junior high schools, not even high schools. He brags about this to this day. And that line was a weird, creepy, as I don't want to say what, dog whistle to these wackos. These books should not be in elementary schools. Walz has been a champion of these books. Yes, it appears that there are several inconsistencies about his descriptions of his military service to this country. That's for sure, and that's beyond concerning. I'd like the Trump campaign to also focus on his bizarre obsession with making sure that books like Lawn Boy and Genderqueer are accessible by our little kids, our most vulnerable. Children are our most vulnerable. So I'd love for Walz to explain this. Okay, you do not need the false choice. Yes, we should have free breakfast in elementary schools. Yes, we should have free lunches. Absolutely. We should have free breakfast, free lunches, and we should leave our kids alone. What they can read, our parents need to have the right to decide what's appropriate for their children. Not Walz, not his weirdo benefactors and supporters. So that was one of the most disturbing aspects of his speech. Mm-hmm. I loved his line about we're not going back. Folks, he's absolutely right. If you elect Harris and Walz for the next 4 years, we will never go back to a prosperous economy. We will never go back to a working class person being able to realistically strive to own their own home. We will never go back to middle class joining the upper middle class. We will never go back to small business leaders small business people being able to thrive. We're not going back to that. We're going to stay at this corporatist economy, high censorship, almost totalitarian-like regime. So yeah, if you vote for them, we're definitely not going back.
Oh, it's totally democratic limbo that they want to keep this country in without much, lowering American efficiency in terms of production, in terms of capitalism, but also ripping it off as much as they can and stuffing their pockets with resources, with the taxpayers' money, and keeping it there and keeping as much as they can to themselves to forever stay in power. That's my kind of view on the situation today. So we mentioned it a little bit, but a few words about DNC in Chicago, the whole, the bird's eye view, and also the details, please, on your opinion on Kamala Harris's. I refuse to put proper stressing on her first name, so I will put it wherever I want. I'll do it until the Americans will learn how to spell definitely in general population. But let me ask you this. So you think there was the staging was by Steven Spielberg? I don't know who provided the outfits, but the speech of Kamala Harris. What's your opinion of that?
It was a decent speech.
Well written. Let's say it was indecent. I disagree with you from the get-go, but it was well written and well delivered.
I think the speech they gave her was decent in terms of what she was trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Her attacks on Republicans and Donald Trump were inappropriate at times, but it could have been a much worse speech for her. And remember, we're dealing with someone who's not nearly as articulate as some previous Democratic presidential candidates. And that's a problem. So she gave this speech. It was a very divisive speech, but again, it was, if she loses the presidential race, and I predict she will in a landslide, she will lose by a landslide, she has a terrific future in acting and gaslighting. She had some wonderful lines in the speech. I'll concede that. Again, these people, they basically rebuke reality and their records. So at one point, she said, we're going to show them who we are, or they showed us who they are. And I was touched by that, because in 2021, we don't have time for me to get to the details, but I was fielding, literally, I personally fielded within a couple of hours, dozens of phone calls from firefighters, nurses, police officers, sanitation workers who were losing their jobs because of this ridiculous mandate. People who had survived from the virus, who had immunity, who had absolutely no need to take this. And it was Friday. I remember like it was yesterday. It was Friday. And on Monday, they were all going to be fired. And long story short, we were trying to help them. We were trying to get them legal counsel and help, and just let them know their options more fully. I've mentioned my firefighter captain friend many times, once on this program and several times on other programs I've been on. But I had a good friend who was a fire captain forced to move to another state, literally just overnight, had to sell everything. A sanitation worker involved in almost every community cause you can think of, supporting 2 little kids. Great guy, out of work. They forced these mandates on so many people. They destroyed so many lives. And Kamala Harris is talking about firefighters and nurses and construction workers in her speech. Give me a break. Basically, for their own political propaganda purposes, they wrecked lives. They not only wrecked the lives of people who refused to take it, there were other people who didn't need to take it and had to face the horrendous choice of either taking it or losing their livelihood. And they decided to take it. And then there are all these untold, unpublished health risks and side effects that people are experiencing right now. So I found it interesting that she was talking about her compassion for the middle class when she and Biden have destroyed the middle class in favor of their friends in big tech and big pharmacy. Should I keep going? Because I can tell you, I have several.
No, I just wanted to throw in the line that last week the government announced, the Pentagon announced that they cannot man, I think, 14 vessels. The Navy cannot man 14 vessels. They have to be kind of removed from circulation, so to speak. I'm not familiar with military technology in depth, specifically the Navy technology, but they're not retired, but they don't have people to put them in action, to put them in service. So they have to remove them from the active fleet. And this is the practical result of Democrats in power. This is what was before the speech, and it is what will be going on if, God forbid, we get Harris, Walz as the president, vice president. If they can get them in the office, everything is a lie. Everything is a sham. Everything is coaching.
Yes, and no wonder they call him Coach Walz. Again, They have mastered gas.
Coach Walz. I will just throw in a Trump-like
Yeah,
twist to it. Coach
yeah.
Walz.
Um, everything with these people are basically well-constructed lies to basically eke out this election. And I love the chance of USA at the DNC. I absolutely loved it, because let's be real here, it must have killed them to chant USA, USA. It must have been eating them alive. These are people who celebrate people spitting on our flag, burning our flag, who make heroes out of losers who bend the knee during the singing of the national anthem. And they were chanting USA. I found that actually very rewarding.
But the stealing thing, I want you to touch upon this as well, because they were stealing things like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and then the at least 5 other things that she mentioned in her speech regarding Trump's lines that they appropriated without actual kind of proper how they call it, annotation, right? They have to give the quoted from there, like in scientific work. They never borrow stuff without noticing the source.
Well, clearly they have no shame. Again, as evinced by this convention, they have absolutely no shame. And yeah, they're making a play for low propensity voters who may not know that these are the people, this is the party who wanted to hunt down and increase taxes on the working class. So they're just banking on people not knowing, right? Let's face it. They're just hoping people don't know. We'll say this. We'll try to get nasty about Trump, bad man, blah, 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 and try to squeeze in a win. They have no choice. They can't run on their record. They have to lie about running. They have to lie about their record. I mean, what are they possibly going to talk about? I also really appreciated how she became tough on the cartels. When did Kamala Harris ever get tough on the cartels? Kamala Harris is the border czar, refuses to this day to visit the border. And something she didn't mention in her speech, as a result of the Biden-Harris open border, not only are the cartels more stronger than ever, more powerful than any organized crime this country has ever seen, and that includes the 5 families in their heyday in the 50s and 60s. We have an explosion of child trafficking, and they are absolutely shameless in doing nothing about it. We've lost track of millions of young people unaccompanied into the United States. We have no idea where they are.
300,000, some figures like this, the lost children.
Actually, I could be wrong. Don't hold me to this, but I think it's actually much higher than that.
As usual.
But they have no control over this. We're constantly finding trucks of little kids being smuggled into the United States. How many operations that are going? The fact that they would release these kids into the country is scary. So I'm not saying that they're owned by the cartels, but we know who the cartels are rooting for. So please spare us this nonsense that she ever got tough on the cartels. And you know, I want to promote unity in this election, and I'm trying to not go after rhinos, even rhinos, and I've been pleased with myself that I'm foregoing certain opportunities, especially with the stuff they tried doing to J.D. Vance and getting him thrown off the ticket, which was never going to work. But these rhinos in the Senate who pushed the border bill earlier this year ought to be ashamed of themselves, because that border bill still allowed millions of illegals into this country.
8,000 a day. No, not a single one. Over 8,000 a day.
And it gave the president the ability to remove the limit if he or she wanted to. So it was unenforceable. But it gives Kamala Harris a talking point how, if only they would pass this bill, our invasion would end. That's absolutely ridiculous. Yes.
And also was a positive and negative tinge on depending on the channel. They say, oh, there are people coming from. It used to be 135 countries. Now it's 165 countries coming to the United States, crossing this border. Some say it was glee. Some say it was concern. But I said a number of times in Russian on my stream, I said, this is the map. Because nobody, believe it or not, is not just picking up the stuff and walks to the airport or whatever, or straddles a log and crosses Atlantic or Pacific, and goes into Mexico and walks to the border. All those people have a clear understanding that this is cartel business, and cartel is not letting anybody get inside this movie theater without a ticket.
Thank you, Yuri.
They are
Yes.
there.
Well
So
said.
this is those 165, 135, even 5 countries. This is the map for CIA and FBI. Get their act together. This is a map of the countries where those cartels, Mexican or whoever, they operate there. And they get people from the stands, so-called. They get people from Africa. Their network is much more efficient, and God knows how much money is revolving in there, circulating in there. But they are much stronger than any organization today, in my opinion. Any organization today, even the Davos group, the World Economic Forum, whatever they call them, like the big conspiracy. This one is more powerful.
Well, that remains to be seen. I think if by some amazing chance Harris wins, I think that'll prove that Davos is in charge now. But we could spend hours talking about that, and let's not. But that's why this is America's is the last best hope on earth right now again, and we need to work for a Trump win. The cartels are very powerful. I found it dramatically impressive. Again, great acting, feigning concern for the middle class. The average mortgage payment in America under Biden-Harris is twice what it was under Donald Trump. Really, they're concerned about the middle class. There are cities in America right now where Americans spend an average of 70% of their monthly income on rent. Now, what part of middle class upward mobility is any of this? Real wages under the Biden-Harris administration have declined anywhere between 3 to 6%. Again, there's various studies, can't go into it. Inflation is skyrocketing. Everything costs more. Americans are making less. Who but the 1% does this benefit? And listen, I'm a capitalist. God bless every entrepreneur, everyone who takes risks and works hard. But under their 4 years, they took a prosperous economy and tanked it. Obama, and he talked about manufacturing jobs, and Biden had bona fides with factory workers.
Oh yeah.
Trump was bringing those jobs back. They were coming back in force. We basically have zero net gains in manufacturing under the Biden administration. Zero. We were having more manufacturing gains pre-Obama under the George W. Bush administration than we're having now. And I guess now is a good time to segue into Obama's speech.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it written that we have to accept this huge lie just because Obama won 2 terms? good for him. Again, great campaigns. If you're a Democratic strategist, study those campaigns. It also helped when you have the world's biggest search engine completely on your side. But great campaigns, great ground game by Obama in 2008 and 2012. But his record on the economy was disastrous. He has the lowest rate of economic growth of any president since World War II. His was lower than George W. Bush. And let's remind everybody of a few things. George W. Bush took over the economy when there was the big tech correction in the stock market, right? Everybody had these insanely overvalued stocks. And this was during the Clinton administration. When Bush took over, basically the correction took place. People took their money out of the stock market. And this almost led to a depression. Bush prevented a depression back then. Then we had, under the Bush term, the George W. Bush administration, we had the disaster of 9/11, which cratered the economy. At the end of the Bush administration, we had the subprime mortgage crisis. So George W. Bush's economic growth was higher than Obama's. Obama was planning trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was so bad for American manufacturing that politicians were arguing about how many safety measures there would be for all the Americans losing their jobs. Who in their right mind negotiates treaties like this for their country? At least anyone pretending to care about American financial prosperity. Let's look around at the fentanyl crisis. Look at these small towns in Ohio, what this has done, what abandoning manufacturing has done. And again, under Obama, guess what? You couldn't, because of Obama or during Obama, we got to the point of where we could not find aspirin produced in the United States of America. And most people didn't even realize this until COVID hit. But Barack Obama was a disaster. His cowardly response to Benghazi presaged and made possible our shameful, cowardly withdrawal from Afghanistan. We became weaker under Obama. The middle class started disappearing under Obama. And we became much more divided under Obama. He ruled by division. As the old British used to say, divide and rule. I think Obama definitely took a few lessons from that saying. So I take issue with heralding Barack Obama as some sort of great statesman who also tanked the economy. And I personally think that the Biden administration is just a third Obama administration. Two-thirds of the senior Biden administration officials worked under Obama.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I don't, if I'm not really impressed by what Obama had to say. I think it's a shame we couldn't bring better opposition against Obama. I don't know if we could have won in 2012. I certainly think we could have had a better candidate than Mitt Romney, but I just find it rich, and I don't think it's going to work. I think as people start to invest more time in learning about the candidates and the policies, and if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz can pull this off, they can just get voters to ignore the fact that they've been in charge for 12 of the last 16 years.
Yeah.
Kudos to them. I don't think it's going to work. I think people are going to start paying more and more attention to what they're claiming, to what they're saying, and I think it's going to be ugly for them in the
Nick,
election.
everything we need to, I'm sorry, everything we need to know about the Democrat Party today is embodied by Michelle Obama, who said her piece with great confidence as usual, and I cannot stop being amazed at how every time she tries to do something, there is something other in her speech or in behavior that totally kind of nullifies all the efficiency for those who listen, of those who try to understand what she wants from us all. And this time it was Sri, kind of not too shabby homes owner, speaking versus the rich, the one percenters, people who take more than they need. And she made it very, very, very dramatic that in her family there was a great suspicion about people who take more than they need in lives. And how do they have like four family members, and they have I mean, two daughters, right? And two of them, and they have three houses, one in Hawaii, one in Chicago, one in Washington DC, and they're all kind of on the average like $10 million each. So how is it not taking more than I don't mind. They want 30 houses, but buy 30 houses. Some say that Obama family is on their way to become first post-presidential billionaire. Billionaire.
Uh, I'm not
But
surprised because
but visually, it's just one touch. Visually, when they hugged Michelle and Obama and Barack, and always our hearts melt at this moment, and we see a photo of her hand with four diamond rings of her hands, two on each hand, pretty solid diamond rings, four. So
um,
this is how you dress to go and talk about the people and poor people and middle class and poor billionaires, right?
well, the Obamas promised us hope and change, and they delivered smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
They decimated the middle class, and they want to talk about people taking more than they need. What about their friends in Solyndra, who took almost $1 billion in government money for green energy and shut down?
Hmm.
Why don't we know about how much more they took than they needed? Their friends. Again, this is a fiction. It's a carefully choreographed and directed production. Nonsense. The Obamas destroyed the middle class. They destroyed small town America, or they came close to doing it. And that's what allowed Donald Trump to win convincingly in 2016, despite being outspent by hundreds of millions of dollars. I am not impressed by them. I actually I find them amusing because I believe, and studies have shown, Americans are among the most knowledgeable voters in the world, if not the most sophisticated and informed voters in the world. I continue to believe that the more and more people look into the Obamas, the Biden administration, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, the more they're going to freak out. And I think it's part of the
Eric
reason
Holder,
why
Eric Holder,
our,
don't forget Eric Holder.
yeah, again, but Peres thought we say go out and vote. That's considered an aggressive comment. Or, hey, you should be a citizen to vote. That's hostile behavior. But this guy basically provoking attack, promoting attacks on people. Let's just ignore that. I'm amused by the Obamas. I think part of what fueled RFK's effusive, unconditional, clear endorsement of Donald Trump, and I was surprised that he got Nicole Shanahan on board. I'm not going to make any pretense, but I think really what's happening, Yuri, is people are saying like, listen, we need to put a stop to this. These people are insane. They don't care about the economy unless you're a billionaire. They don't care about the consequences of their programs. All they really care about is this insane culture war that they want to put in. This maniacal focus on making sure men can shower in the ladies' locker room, right? I was so happy. You probably saw this. The Supreme Court put a stop to Biden's Title IX revisions, which would have ended women's sports as we know. It would have allowed any biological male, basically under any conditions, to compete on any women's team in the country. It would have destroyed scholarships. Even today, so many scholarships are being taken away from hardworking young women in this country. And they have this trans obsession we should respect everyone. LGBTQ plus, everyone deserves respect. No one should be treated unfairly, unethically, or illegally. We 8-year-olds to cut off appendages. That is sick. That is disgusting. And you can use as much communist or Orwellian language you want to hide it, like Walz was talking about privacy and blah, 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 blah. That's insane. Parents are being sent to prison because they won't let 7-year-olds take hormone blockers. That's the reality. The problem we have is that a lot of voters don't know about this. They refuse to believe it. They think it's propaganda, but it's the truth. This has been their legacy. Their legacy has been promoting a freak show, and everything goes circus that doesn't care about the economy, that doesn't care about well-being, that doesn't care about peace in the world, but basically promoting their own narrow, selfish interests. Do we have a couple of minutes, or we just?
Yeah, we have a couple of minutes.
So one thing I want to talk about is, obviously I predicted a landslide. I do want to focus and emphasize again, overconfidence is our worst enemy. And if there's one aspect of the Trump operation that concerns me is the ground game. Now, I'm not taking any cheap shots at the ground game, but as I've mentioned before, the Democrats have and will have unlimited funds. Money is no object. For every dollar we pour into GOTV, they will pour $10 into it. I'm hearing rumblings about the ground game. I don't know. There's always rumblings about every campaign operation, but we need to get focused. We need to be working with the state chairs and count the state organizations in every state. Now, as you and I know that there are exceptions to this advice, especially, well, let's not go there. But the Trump campaign needs to coordinate with the state operations. We need to get any qualified, competent Republican professional willing to get involved. We need to let them in. Now is not the time for games. Now is not the time for experiments. They will vastly outspend us on the ground game. We know this. Did you see the freak out over allowing Arizona to verify citizenship in order to let people vote?
Sure.
Did you see that?
Sure.
So again, maybe it's psychological warfare on us, but what do we have to say when our opponents are going crazy that a state is saying, hey, in order to vote, you have to be a citizen? And I'm the one, I've been on here saying, like, stop with the conspiracy theories. QAnon is a Democrat psyops. Please don't feed into it. And I stand by that. But you see where these people are going. Okay. We look at all these states where it was so close last time and they had all these magical ballots appearing. One piece of good news, seems like Brian Kemp has patched things up with Donald Trump in Georgia.
Yeah.
This is huge news. This is great news. Again, maybe it's not self-serving for me to say this.
Looking for those 11,000 plus votes right now. He's
Look,
got to bring the receipts to the table. What's the bottle of rosé won't do it this time.
I was disgusted by Raffensperger and Kemp's behavior, particularly Raffensperger last time in 2020 and leaking that phone call. They really dropped the ball and they panicked. So I'm glad that they're cooperating. I'm hoping that there's more cooperation, but there has to be more grassroots involvement by everybody. If you're a Trump supporter in this country, you have to get involved. It's not just voting. You really need to, if you have time, please invest in helping the campaign in whatever way you're capable of helping. Do not underestimate the Democrats. They will not give up. You see what they're capable of doing. You saw this massive bounce for Harris that RFK even talked about when she didn't give any interviews, when nobody knew anything about her. It was skillfully manufactured by the mainstream media and their allies on social media. You see what they're capable of. What we have on our side are the issues of and sanity, basically. Americans are fed up with this nonsense. And the Democrats, as I said last month, they're going to make this as nasty as possible. They need to find as many distractions as possible so that people don't start looking into the Harris record and what she really supported. This is the campaign. Instead of maybe a counseling center for single moms, they had a truck providing abortions at their convention and vasectomies. That tells you really all you need to know about what they think of the working class and middle class voters in this country, and what they think about people who, don't have a vacation home, should do about reproduction. They're very elitist. Again, I think we're in a strong position. This may turn out to be the first campaign, the first convention that, albeit masterfully produced, does not give a bounce to the Democrats. I just think they set themselves up for so much criticism and so much. I think their hypocrisy will be exposed on a grand scale. If this was 1983 or 1991, 92, when they controlled all the media and you couldn't really do fact checks. Yeah, this is great. But even with search results being skewed, people are going to do their research. They're going to find out about Kamala Harris's record on the border. They're going to find out about Bidenomics, which tanked the economy. They're going to see Harris praising Bidenomics. They're going to see Walz basically going to bat for this trash in his schools. And people are going to look back and say, show us who you are. We're not going back. Some people may not want to go back to peace and prosperity, but a vast majority of Americans want calm, they want sanity, they want peace, they want good paying jobs, they want stability for themselves and their families. And the choice is easy, which is why I'm sticking to my prediction of a landslide win for Trump.
And to provide this result or get as close as to this while winning, I will repeat the thing that I heard from other people, and that's how we operate. We are like stochastic, right? There's a term like for people who are just get the drift and they act based on that. A stochastic resistance to the existing order of things in this country. Not everything, obviously, but certain things that we as citizens see as detrimental to our future. And we need to be heard at least, but also there should be action on behalf of the party that we kind of believe in. And I would welcome any outreach in my direction, of course, by Republican Party and organized bodies. And I work with some of them. Basically, it's all volunteer. And I try to give them voice on my program and be on their program if they want me. But main thing is simple recipe. If you don't feel comfortable socializing with people and talking about statistics and talking about the computer bugs and talking about other things that may upset you, just concentrate on a very positive. And you want Donald Trump and the Republican Party in total to win in this election, the country and the world to win in this election. Think about 10 people you can bring to the voting to the polling sites. To take 10 people for sure and be there yourself, dear viewer. Be there yourself and bring 10 people with you and make it fun for them somehow. If you want to participate, it's not necessary to give money to win red. I'm sorry, they can get very obnoxious, but you can set up a light lunch after you vote together. You can make it virtual. You can make it on a Zoom. You can send everybody a little gift afterwards, like a note, thank you, with a little American flag and a toothpick with American flag. The opportunities are boundless. You can do a lot of things by yourself. Be the army of one, please.
Yuri,
It's allowed.
you took on Hakeem Jeffries, and like, no, I speak to a lot of candidates far away from New York, even across the country, and I'm not going to pass myself off as an expert on every state, 50 state political operations and how the Republican Party is organized and deployed in each state. I'm not an expert. I'm learning a lot, but with no resources, you had no resources. I hope you're not. That doesn't. No resources other than those you
I hope
brought.
it won't become chronic.
Look, but other than what you brought to the table by yourself, I know that, and I was not involved in your campaign. I wish I was. I was involved in a few other campaigns that year. What you brought to the table, I was shocked because we know how it works. That's why you're an excellent example of why we need to take matters into our own hands in terms of organizing and getting out the vote and helping, coordinating with the campaigns. But don't think that just because you don't have some kind of fancy title or you don't have a close relationship with some fancy advisor with a fancy title that you can't make a difference. You can. It's been done before. You did a great job. Please don't take this the wrong way. Please don't take this the wrong way. When I was looking at the results, and I'm like, oh, let's see how this went against Hakeem. I'm like, did we break 20%? And I'm like, what? We got almost 40% over here. What's going on here? Like, what happened? Did they throw money? I said, I thought you found some, that they found some big donor, some big PAC.
I found a wallet on Brighton Beach Avenue.
Yeah. So let's focus. We need. I don't want to use terms like "save America," but where they plan on taking this country, Harris, Biden, and their acolytes, the Obamas, we don't want to go. They're taking us there by sleight of hand, by trickery. We don't want to go. So let's get out there. Please do not be discouraged by anything you read or hear. Make sure, if you cannot vote in person on election day, please vote early, wherever you are. If you cannot show up to the polls, please mail in your ballot in whatever the way the law prescribes. Please make sure that you vote. Make sure that your friends and family all vote wherever you are in this country. Do not listen to the conspiracy theories. Do not fall for the hype. Who cares? You have various theories about what's going to happen on election day or after election day, and you're entitled to your opinions. Use your own time as you see fit. Make sure you vote, please. Just don't get caught up in the nonsense. Vote.
Yeah, and our party was unique. It seems to be our little morning for me and midday for you. Our party here seems to have no finale. I just want to add yet another thing on top of that, because the state of New York, the Supreme Court of the state of New York, allowed to continue this totally unconstitutional situation with mail-in votes in the state of New York. And they said that Liz Stefanik's petition has no whatever basis in reality. I didn't read the whole result, the whole text that they issued. So it will continue. This disgrace, this vote by mail will continue, and basically you need to request the ballot. So to make it easier for you, guys, you can request this. I will explain it in Russian on my program a number of times, how to request this ballot, how to receive this ballot, how to fill out this ballot. And just tell your friends that they can do the same. They don't even, some people are not in good health, and they can find different reasons, but you can vote by mail. Just request this as early as it's allowed. I think you can already do it, and vote by mail.
Absolutely.
You have no opportunity to go to the voting in person. I love voting in person. I think that's the future, and paper vote on top of that. I think that's fair. I think that's the minimum that that we can ask from each other, to find time and look into how our country and who is running our country. That's a minor thing for all of us. And once you have this opportunity, we'll do that by mail. We gotta overwhelm. We gotta be present. We gotta show them, because they look at the actual votes before they print the fake ones.
I think this is.
And take a picture of your vote, by the way. Because if anything, we'll make a website. We'll put up all the pictures of your vote by mail documents. That would be interesting, after all.
I just want to, so I don't get in trouble, I want to make clear that I myself do not have any proof of any illegalities, but I want to bring your viewers and listeners' attention to what happened in Fulton County, Georgia in 2020. And we need to make sure, and I think the Trump team is more than prepared in all 50 states, New York included, that, you know, if we hear about any water pipes bursting, we're not falling for it this time.
And window boarding from inside as well.
Yeah, and that nonsense that, oh, you can't get this close. But what I was, and I've mentioned this on your show, but we need to talk about it again. The sight of all the election observers being ushered out of Fulton County precincts, and then you see these workers pulling out camouflaged gigantic suitcases, hidden, concealed, of untold thousands of paper ballots, which somehow came in at 99.9% for Biden. I am not alleging any illegality. I want to make that clear. I'm not alleging that anything improper was done, but please don't tell me I don't have a right to be suspicious or ask questions based on what we saw. And what I'm saying is we can't see that again. That can't happen again. And I have a feeling that that's not going to happen again. And that those shenanigans they pulled in Philadelphia, they're not going to be able to pull them again. And who knows? Who knows what happens? Elections in America.
Yeah.
But I'm very confident about where we're situated. The Democrats, please understand this. You're going to see polls that are going to show Harris with a 15-point lead over Trump. You're going to see these ridiculous polls showing her with like a 20-point lead in Michigan. Don't fall for the hype. You're going to see these. The one thing that is, you know, visceral is they're going to outraise us. Please understand this. Between the hard money and their outside groups, this is going to be like David versus Goliath. It doesn't matter. They're going to definitely outraise us. But if we all, like, people are rejecting their insanity, the RFK endorsement shows that.
Yeah.
We're in a good position.
That's a real Trump politics, by the way. Bring in Brian Kemp and bring in RFK Jr. This is how it's done. It's almost as like ending the war in 48 hours. With these people, yeah, but this is how it's done. It was done. What was RFK was like a month's work, judging by his own words, and then with Kemp, it was Trump just said it about it, and he said that he didn't like him, so it was resolved since that moment. What, less than 2 weeks? Again.
Pete Huckster is doing a great job in Michigan. We also need to send more manpower to Michigan, though. I think we can win by upwards of 5 points over there, but we can't take anything for granted. Again, this is why the rhinos were horrified about J.D. Vance, because no one's voting for the Democratic ticket because Harris is the nominee in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. They're terrified of losing the working class vote over there, and they are. We're seeing the trend. But focus on outliers. Like, let's make sure everything is going right in North Carolina. You know, the Texas stuff, I don't know if you hear it's close in Texas. Yeah, people, I strongly encourage the Harris campaign to invest at least $250 million in Texas. I strongly encourage them to do that because it's going to be wasted. Texas is solid red. I think it's time for us to unify, forget about our differences, even differences with Democrats. This ticket has proven to be so extreme and so dangerous for the country. We have to coalesce around Donald Trump.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you,
to
Yuri. Have a great
everyone who's
weekend to you and
listening.
everyone.
Sure will. And we'll meet again and quite soon on this platform. And please, guys and ladies and gentlemen, please spread the word how to act in a situation where we have this adverse system of not letting people participate properly in great American democracy. Vote.